Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to the weekend. It is the Earthmaster out here, 11:36 a.m. California time, Saturday, November 9th, 2024 is a date. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows looks like a 1.6 there across the area of Southern California. There in the green flag. I want to talk about, I was mentioning this last night here in my update, that we should start to see an 8.0 magnitude earthquake somewhere around the planet at any given time here, considering that the average intervals here of earthquakes on any given year, we should have at least one 8.0 earthquake every year. If not every year, then potentially every other year. And our last 8-pointer was back in 2021. So we're looking at 3 years now with no 8-pointer. And the potential here of seeing an 8-pointer obviously increases. On any given year, there's normally about 15 7.0 to 7.9 earthquakes here and so on. As you can see, the list gets larger as the magnitudes get smaller. So I want to show you guys here real quick the this is just Southern California here. This is the last few months, actually since the first of the year, in the all magnitude department. And you can see the cutoff line right here, similar to my voice. I'm still not back to normal here, but I'm working with it. So I cut the line off right here, drew pretty much a little square or a little rectangle to include Southern California and the all magnitudes map. This includes every single thing that the USGS put out. 15,000 earthquakes here across Southern California since the 1st of January. That's quite a bit of earthquake activity. In fact, we've seen more earthquake activity out here in Southern California above the 2.5 magnitude level since any time since about the mid-'80s. So things have been increasing out here rapidly in terms of earthquake activity. Now, we have not seen the big one yet, but I think it is inching closer to that time period where we could see a much larger quake out here in Southern California. Of course, the largest one this year so far going to be this 5.2 here outside of Bakersfield, where it triggered a whole bunch of aftershock activity as well. We're talking about over close to 1,000 earthquakes here following that 5.2 earthquake. So a lot of aftershock sequences there going on. Also, we've seen some movement there across the area south around the Malibu area, which triggered a swarm around that 4-pointer, and also a separate swarm over here across the area with another 4.6 along the Malibu coast fault here. So these two areas, along with many other regions out here across Southern California, have been on an uptick this year in terms of increasing magnitudes and increasing a multitude of earthquakes out here. And of course, the San Andreas Fault here, very capable of producing an 8.1 earthquake. Now, whether that's where we're going to see our next 8-pointer or not, that we'll have to watch for that. I want to show you guys also the years here. Throughout the years of various magnitudes, actually, I struck on here 7.5 and above just to show you guys where all the big earthquakes have been happening out here. As you can see, our last 8-pointer right here back in 2021, South Sandwich Trench down here. You guys remember that? Now, that was the year of 3 8-pointers. So we actually had 3 magnitude 8 and above earthquakes. No magnitude 9s yet. Those happen, much less frequent compared to the 8s and the 7s out here. So we've seen the 8.1 South Sandwich Trench. Also that year, we had an 8.2 in Alaska back in July 2021. And then earlier in 2021, the Kermadec Trench area, 8.1. So the offset here may have pushed off the regular intervals here by about a year or so. Because when I went back here and looked at previous years, there was roughly about an 8-pointer every year. 2019, 2018, 2017, and then we skipped a little bit. Looks like we skipped about 2 years before the previous 8.3 in 2015. Then it goes back to 2014, 2013, 2013. So I think we're getting super close here to seeing an 8.0 earthquake out here somewhere around the globe. History has a way to repeat itself, and nothing here has slowed down in terms of plate tectonics, right? We haven't halted that process, and we don't want to. We need to keep the planet alive and moving. So the 8.0 magnitude earthquake could happen at any given time and on any given place out here. Most likely a subduction zone, which of course extends, there's many subduction zones out here all over the place. But also, there's a transform boundary out here, the San Andreas Fault, the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault, capable of producing an 8.1 earthquake. So whether it's on there or potentially maybe up in Alaska. I know Alaska here has a history of very large earthquakes, and even though they had a 8-pointer back here in 2021, let me go find that again. That 8.2, 2021. There's still a little bit of gap here in terms of larger scale potential across this area of the subduction zone. That big old 9-pointer, 9.2 back in 1964, that was well inland. But if you look here across the subduction zone here, see if I can get this through, we got a little seismic gap. So it's potentially possible we could see the next 8-pointer out here across the northern edge here, northern corner of the Pacific Ring of Fire. 7.9, 2018. I just don't see any major large-scale earthquake. Well, there was an 8.2, 1899, but that's more so over here across the east of the subduction zone. But this little area right about here, I think, maybe up here for the 8-pointer next. And if you look, let me bring up the most recent data here. We've been watching a pretty decent amount of earthquake activity here across the Aleutian Trench recently. From about the Kuril-Kamchatka here all the way across the Aleutian Trench. Even a lot of inland movement here taking place there all the way up through the state of Alaska. Canada getting some earthquake activity as well. So strain all around this area of concern right here across the subduction zone that I'm thinking may play a part in the next 8-pointer. We'll have to watch that. That's, you got to look at these intervals here. Look at seismic gap zones that haven't really seen a lot of large-scale earthquake activity recently, and an area that's capable of producing an 8-pointer. Again, that 9.2 was much further up inland, but this area right here is seismically absent of any major recent large-scale earthquake activity. And boy, I tell you, this region can definitely produce some large-scale activity, large-scale events. So, and that's just one area. Another area could be New Zealand, where we've seen a swarm of deep activity underneath the North Island, New Zealand region recently. A trail of moderate quakes leading from the Hikurangi offshore, further out here across the Pacific. So this is another area that can easily produce an 8-pointer, and a lot of time has passed. Or we could see an 8-pointer across the southern end of the Cascadia. It's just the possibilities out here are limited, but there's quite a few of them that's capable of producing at least an 8-pointer. And who knows where it's going to be. All I know is I look at these seismic gap zones, and this is just one that kind of pops up in my head, and we'll see what happens here. But far as current activity goes, I mean, Southern California, look at that. That's crazy amount of earthquake activity out here this year. Let's see what's going on here across Southern California. Speaking of Malibu, we put Malibu back on the map here today. It almost seems like when you talk about something, when you think about something, you pretty much can create an event, create your reality. It all comes down to quantum physics and the, I don't want to get into that. My voice will not last that long in order to explain how quantum physics work. You think about something long enough, you can create your own reality, so to speak. Like me, I'll give you an example. I don't like driving in heavy traffic. In fact, it annoys me quite a bit when people drive crazy out there on the road. And so I'm always thinking about that whenever I drive around Chico traffic, and Chico's just crazy traffic out here. It's not a big city, but it's big enough for me. And I'm always thinking about that as soon as I get behind the wheel. So sure enough, throughout my day as I'm driving around Chico, I run into multiple idiot drivers out there that are just testing my nerves. So the thought process here is that I'm creating all this environment around me just by thinking about it. There's that earthquake there that maybe we potentially thought up. So we just got to be cautious about our thoughts for sure, because it can go either way, positive or negative. So 2.5 there across the Malibu area. Another earthquake here, eastern areas of the Los Angeles region, a 1.7. So things are starting to kick up here in the last hour, it looks like. Far as 2.5 and above, that's the only one yet today. Most of the earthquake activity out here generally light and from yesterday. But today's a new day, and it looks like things are starting to increase there a little bit in Southern California. Not a whole lot there for Northern California. One more earthquake here, 2.7 in the Petrolia area. That's at the extreme southern end of the Cascadia megathrust area. This region has definitely been seeing a little bit more uptick than normal out here across the northern edge here of the San Andreas Fault and the interaction here, the Triple Point Junction between the Pacific, North American, and the Juan de Fuca Plate. This area definitely shown some elevated seismic activity. And, there's the all magnitudes map here. It shows all of the smaller quakes as well, about 55 earthquakes in the area. So we'll continue to watch that region as well. Of course, California in general has been quite active out here in the last few months. One earthquake outside of Mount St. Helens, a little 1.3 here in the last few minutes. That earthquake is showing up right now on the Mount St. Helens seismograph station there in Washington. So that is a legit earthquake. Obviously, we're seeing it there on the map. So we're starting to get some adjustment going on out here across the West Coast right now. Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up here north. Down south here across this mountain range, the Wyoming range, a couple twos out there. Let's double check the Yellowstone overview here and see what we got. Yeah, that yesterday, I don't know what that noise was. And the noise I was talking about is going to be this reading right here. A little thickness going on there. That reading showed up also on West Boundary. It's hard to say, if there was something going on local to the seismograph stations, but it's interesting, definitely interesting to see that, because we checked the wind out there yesterday, and there wasn't a whole lot of wind that would be stirring up the noise out there in the environment. So that's a little interesting activity that got picked up. It also showed up here across Parker Peak. It's going to be this reading right here. So it's hard to say exactly what that was, but we'll definitely watch it. There was some earthquake activity following that odd signal. That's going to be this quake right here. And I believe that's going to be one of the earthquakes there from yesterday down south. Let me pull this map back up. One of these earthquakes, a 2.3 or the 2.9, a handful of earthquakes out there. I don't think we have anything going on in terms of uplift out there across Yellowstone, but we can always check. I do like to check the general GPS stations out here, see what's going on. Don't worry, the mic's not cutting out. It's just my voice. I'm trying to get better. I'm going to really stock up on some garlic. Missy Mimi's ain't going to like me there for eating some garlic, but I got to get over this here. It's been consistently too long. A little bit of uptick here in terms of inflation there across Yellowstone, but this is almost looks like it's a yearly thing that kicks up here every year about this time. Notice these charts here. I'll click on it a little bit higher so you guys can see right here the dots indicating some vertical uplift there across that area of Yellowstone. but it's a common thing. But the overall trend is going down here across the area for that seismograph station, or the GPS station there around Lake Yellowstone. Further south here, that one's offline. Up north definitely has some what looks like vertical uplift here. You guys see that ever since about 2000, end of 2021, a vertical uplift, and then also most recently inflation going on up here across this area of Yellowstone, which is rather interesting there. And again, that's at the northern edge here of Yellowstone National Park. Let's get something in between here. That one's offline. Is that the one that we just checked? I think it is. But yeah, there's definitely more, it looks like more uptick here in inflation there across the northern edge of Yellowstone National Park than, say, south. So obviously it's a super volcano, right? But nothing of concern at the moment in terms of any volcanic activity. But it's always interesting to see uplift and whatnot there across the area. There's another station here actually showing some decent vertical displacement here. More so in the last few months than it looks like at any time here. So something may be rolling around well underneath the area. We haven't seen a lot of earthquake activity out here, but this reading right here looks like it could be magma movement. But that's why I always try to check the wind maps, and also any thunderstorms and whatnot. So when we went to check it yesterday, there was no wind or anything out there. So potentially that could be something at the Yellowstone area underneath this region that might be, we might have to pay attention to it. It looks like it was only picked up here across the northern edge of Yellowstone National Park, but Parker Peak picked it up over here as well. Moose Creek, Idaho picked that noise up as well. It's some type of slow underground movement is what it looks like. So we'll have to remember this date from yesterday about this time, and see if we get any further activity like that, because that's rather interesting. All right, moving on here, some newer activity. Panama seeing a 5.8 here in the last 25 minutes or so. Looks like that's at the extreme southern end here of the plate boundary. A 5.6 earthquake in the same region prior. So a little bit of activity taking place here across this area of the world. The rest of the states out here, aside from oil fields getting hit from yesterday and today, fairly quiet. There's that Malibu earthquake, 2.5. All right, let's see here. Some deeper activity into the Tonga Trench, 4.7. 333. Look at that. 333 miles deep here into this area. Got some further threes kicking off down there across New Zealand. Nothing big going on there for now. Let's see here. What else we got? Some newer activity up there along the Kuril-Kamchatka. Look at that bouncing back and forth here between the Caribbean, eastern edge here of the Caribbean plate and the western edge. Putting a strain out here against the Puerto Rico Trench recently. This is another area that has been investigated potentially for producing a mega quake. If something big happened out here, that could potentially trigger no doubt, a tsunami. I don't know how it would affect the East Coast out here. Potentially it could, with it being in the proximity here to the south, but there's a little uncertainty on if that could actually produce a tsunami that far away. But the Puerto Rico Trench here, subduction zone here to the southeast, very capable of producing some mega quakes out here in this area under the strain right now. due to all the stress out here against the Middle America Trench in this general region. This area, let me bring this up here real quick. If you think about it here, the Caribbean plate's going to be in the pink salmon color. You got a lot going on here with this little plate. It's being pushed up from the south by the South America plate. Also, rift boundaries out here affect the strain against that plate. The North American plate generally moving up north and to the west here with these arrows, but you got the Cocos plate here, the subduction zone, Middle America Trench. This whole area is where we're seeing today's activity. That, see the two arrows pointing right there, the subduction zone. But when we see further escalation here of earthquake activity, that puts a big time strain here on the Caribbean plate, and that's where we're seeing the elevated seismic activity here following this movement down south here, or to the west, I should say. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Any type of squeezing on this plate boundary, if there's enough strain, will produce earthquake swarms and potentially some larger earthquake activity out here. It's not happening right now. There was a 4.7 there on the Puerto Rico Trench earlier this morning, along with a handful of smaller quakes, but we'll definitely watch that there. It's an area of interest with any type of elevated seismic activity. Some movement further out in the Atlantic, 4.7 there from today. Also down south, a 5.1. So things are starting to kind of kick up out here across the area. A little bit of further movement out here across the Japan region. Let's see here. There's a 4.5. Now, all the activity here recently across the Izu Trench. In fact, we got to go back the last 7 days to see this little swarm out here. A lot of this from yesterday. Today, yesterday, and the day before. A swarm of activity. Watching this area for some further movement. Most of the time here, the strain out here that we're seeing applies right here across this plate boundary. And of course, Taiwan, the subduction zone right here that the Japanese government has put out a mega quake warning for recently, is seeing a little bit further newer activity with a 4.5 this morning. So that's why I'm saying all the activity back here, applying the strain against that subduction zone that's capable of producing, well, at least an 8.0 earthquake. This could be the area that may see the near soon-to-be 8-pointer. You just never know. It could be anywhere. You pretty much just got to watch areas of elevated seismic activity where all of the swarming and the strain has been applying here recently. And that's just one of the areas that needs to be watched. Let me grab a drink here. Drinking some orange juice, trying to stock up here on vitamin C. And it's not, I feel perfectly fine. It's just my voice box. It's really weird. Definitely weird. I got an appointment set up Monday if it doesn't get better, because this has been kind of persistent here for over a week. And that's not normal. Definitely not normal. I don't get sick like this. All right, let's see what else we got out here across the world here, folks. Obviously, some elevated seismic activity ongoing today. Mediterranean region, a little bit less active than yesterday. A lot of these red color rings here indicating older movement there from yesterday. So there's a handful of newer quick activity out there around Turkey northward. Some movement there across the Himalayas. Big island of Hawaii. Let's go check out there real quick, see what's going on over the hot spot. Nothing major. Nothing major at all. Let's double check, see if they've got the equipment up and running. Last time I checked, they haven't. And I say that because I'll show you guys. Well, let me go back to the overall chart here. There we go. Here's a 2-day chart. Past week, past month. That's when it went offline right here, I believe. Back in the October time period. Has not come back online because no tilt meter across a volcano is going to look like that. These are very extreme, small amplitudes right here. This should be wavy and up. These should be bigger numbers. Even on the 2-day chart here, this is just showing that it's offline with those extremely small. This is 0.02 of a reading, 0.01. This is 0.2, 0.1, 0.4. So this is even smaller scale than this one in terms of the amplitudes. This just tells me that it's offline. It's not picking up any type of normal data that it should be picking up. August 2024, when it went up here at this cone area, yeah, it was working fine until it went offline. So these are irrelevant here. They're not working properly. It's not stationary like that. This is just an offline reading. So they need to get that fixed. I hope they do soon enough. I don't see what's taking them so long there. If they need someone to fix it, I'll gladly go out there and jump on a plane and go fix it for them. But I know that's not accurate data. A couple earthquakes out there around the Kilauea volcano, and who knows what's going on out there underneath the ground. We can look at a couple different tilt meters here. Let's get off of this here. This one has a little bit of displacement here. And the last, this is the 30-day chart, it looks like. But, you know, I just wish they had these working right. I wish they actually had more tilt meters out here around this volcano, because it's pretty important to keep an eye on this volcano, because it can do a lot more damage out there than what it's been doing recently. Vertical displacement here since October 26th. So obviously we know there's some things going on out there across the area of the Middle East Rift Zone. And until we get these other stations checked here, we'll just kind of have to take their word for it on what's going on out there. Let's take a look here at the Earthquake 3D globe again. 2.0 Alaska. All right. Where's that 2.5? Was that? Okay, that's just picking up the Malibu station once again. All right. Space weather activity. Let's check this out real quick, see what's going on. It looks like the elevated flare threat here has dropped to about 20% chance here. And that is primarily due because of these sunspots here that have been decaying. Degrading, so to speak. They were fairly complex here, producing a number of M flares recently back when they were over in this position, but now these are starting to pretty much just die away. This whole massive area's weakening. This area back here still shows some close proximity of the magnetic colors in this magnetogram image, so there's still a remaining threat here for some X flare probability, but not quite as much as originally had forecasted there before these other sunspots weakened. So we got a 20% chance for X flare, M flare at 70, C flare around 99% chance or so. A little bit of aurora uptick out of the blue for no reason last night. Actually, we've seen it up to around the KP index of 5. I say no reason, but it wasn't really forecasted. I believe what it was is some high-speed solar wind stream from a number of coronal holes out here recently that have been facing the Earth. And if the conditions are right, if you get the BZ component there pointing south, tip south of the interplanetary magnetic field, then that will allow generally the solar wind stream that's flowing from these coronal holes to amplify and create these auroras out here. Even though there was no CME associated with this event, it was just general solar wind stream that was allowed to escalate a little bit there due to that BZ component with a southward tilt. No major roars in the forecast there, folks, and we'll just kind of keep an eye on things. This is what this was a few days ago, so that's irrelevant. All right, let's check out Storm Prediction Center. Not a whole lot for severe weather right now. In fact, if you look on the map here, just general thunderstorm activity out here with no tornado, no wind, no hail damage potential. according to the Storm Prediction Center. This tropical system down here going to pull up, well, the low pressure is going to pull up a little moisture here from this tropical system as we head into this weekend and early next week, bringing some rainfall out here across this area. I know these guys have been dealing with some drought, so they got some rain headed that general direction. No threat here for this tropical system as it will dissipate further in the Gulf of Mexico. Got a little bit of rain out here for California. Not expecting a whopper of a storm, but we'll take anything we can get. More severe weather lined up here for Oklahoma and this same area that's been impacted by tornadoes here recently as we head into early. This is going to be looks like next Monday. Not this coming Monday here in a couple days, but the following Monday. And, of course, this could all change, but it looks like the patterns are picking up on some type of severe weather event. After that, well, I guess we'll have to see what happens out here. A little bit of cold air dipping down here across the good portion of the eastern portion of the country here. Cold temperatures. All right. Real quick glance here at the seismos. Look pretty quiet for now. Again, these 8-pointers, it's potentially at any time here we could see anything stir up here, folks, for 8.0 or greater. Remember, 2021, looking at over 3 years now. All models and stuff like that point to, if we see a series of 8-pointers within a year, it normally pushes it off by about a year. So we should have had one by now. One 8-pointer every year, if not every year, every other year. Or every 2 years or so, and it's been over 2 years, so we should be seeing something here very soon in the 8.0 magnitude range. The question is, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, where's it going to be? You could throw a dart at this globe here, and it could be anywhere out here. We'll just have to watch this and see what happens. Have yourself a good Saturday, folks. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening. Take care. Going to stock up on vitamin C and go grab a couple of things of garlic. Better get some mouthwash as well, right? Have a good one.